Good morning. Here is my video with my first attempt of using Sculpey Air Dry Clay to make a pinch pot. So I have taken out some and I've wrapped the rest in a Ziploc bag to keep it nice and moist. And I'm using an old ceramic piece that I had from last year as my reference guide. I'm going to try and replicate it with air dry clay to see what's similar and what's different. So the first thing you want to do to make your pinch pot is to make a ball, put your thumbs in and pinch it all the way around to get your basic pinch pot shape. Now I want mine to look like a bear on its side, so I'm going to flip mine when it's finished and kind of squish the bottom part a little bit, and I'm going to cut off the excess that I don't want. You can see here I'm using some of the tools that I normally use with clay. I'm going to talk about that a little more later. It didn't quite work for me with air dry clay. It wasn't the same. So I found I ended up using my fingers for most of it, or a butter knife from the kitchen. Okay, now I'm trying to form a bear's head. So I took another small ball, and every time I add a piece, you can see I'm using the toothpick or the skewer, and I'm scratching the surface of both pieces that are going to be joined together. We call that scoring. And then I'm adding a little bit of water to join the two pieces together. Now I have to say, this is another observation, as every time I tried to use water with the air dry clay, it got super sticky, so I kept having to dry my fingers off. So that was also a little different than clay. Other than putting it on and attaching it, I'm trying to use a tool to blend those edges together so that it doesn't fall off quite easily. And again, I kept going back to the knife. It seemed to be the flattest, most useful tool for me for this part. Pinch it, shape it however you wish. And then when you're going to attach it again, you want to make sure you score the surface. You want to make it rough. Otherwise, the two pieces will just kind of fall apart. And this is true for clay and the air dry clay. So once I knew where I was going, I'm scoring the surface, scoring the bear's head, a little bit of water, and here I'm using my fingernail to actually blend those two things together. All right, now here I'm taking more clay and I'm pinching oval shapes to make the forearms and the back paws, and tiny little teardrop shapes to make claws for my bear. With this, I really didn't have to score the tiny parts. They kind of just stuck together fairly easily. Oh, he's so cute. All right, here I deviated a little bit from the original. I decided to add the forearm, like the shoulder part, to my bear, and also to kind of the same back haunch and back paw. I was trying to gauge the time of how long this would take to do. So this first part, just building the pinch pot and then adding the head and arms and legs, took me about 30 minutes. But I also have my idea, so that helped. Hopefully you have your sketch all ready to go. Using my finger to make sure everything's attached. You can always add a little more clay if you feel like it's not sturdy enough. That will help secure it. So here is the bear after the first 30 minutes. And at this point, I took a break and I wrapped him up in a Ziploc bag to make sure he stayed airtight and nice and moist and not ready to dry out. Okay, part two. I came back with a photo this time of a bear's face so I could better make the features. I wasn't happy with the way the bear was looking. So use whatever you need to make your sculpture just the way you want it. The last part was the tail, and then I wrapped him up for the night. Still nice and moist, easy to kind of manipulate. So this is the second day. I've switched out my tools. I'm trying some wooden tools and plastic tools and the butter knife from the day before. And this was working much better for me. It was softer. It wasn't gouging the surface. It was an easy way to kind of smooth. And I noticed that after sitting in a Ziploc bag for the whole night, the clay was moist again, moister than it had been when I worked on it yesterday. So it was much easier to kind of move with my fingers too. So here I am just kind of making sure that all the parts that I added, I'm sorry, my picture's off the screen a little bit, are really joined on nice and strong and that nothing's going to fall off. So I'm kind of reinforcing all those little edges that I couldn't get my finger in, so the wooden spoon really helped here. You can decide how smooth you want it to be. I'm going to add texture soon, so I wasn't too worried about making it perfectly smooth. Right now, I just want to make sure everything is attached and not going to fall off. I kind of like this bear a little better than the first one. I still have my surface covered. You want to make sure it's not going to ruin any furniture in your house. Use whatever you have. Look around, see what's in your kitchen, your bathroom, anything you can have your hands on to manipulate this clay. I think here I was trying to cut away a little piece of the claw that was a bit too long. Okay, now we're ready for part 3. Think about ways you want to add texture. What kind of texture? I knew I wanted fur, so I immediately started using one of the clay tools, and then I thought, oops, you know what? Let's try it on a piece of old clay first before I ruin my entire sculpture. So maybe take a piece of leftover air dry clay and just try different tools until you find the one that you like. So I was playing with using the corner, the tips, what could best make fur. And then I found this plastic fork I have, and I liked that the best, so that's the one I ended up using. So I smoothed out the part I had started and then just kind of recovered the surface with my fork tool. And then the last thing you want to do, once you have all your texture, is to sort of touch up any last minute things you want to make perfect. And especially with a sculpture, you want to make sure you turn the whole thing around. It's not a 2D drawing. You want to make sure it looks good from all angles. And at this point, I am ready to let it dry and see what happens. This literally took me 10 minutes this morning, so this was kind of the fast part. All right, good luck.